Right now, Iranian-backed militias are attacking American bases in Iraq and Syria. Drones, rockets, missiles, dozens of attacks since October 2023. American soldiers have been killed and wounded. And every time it happens, the same frustration. Why won't we hit Iran back? Why do they get away with it? Here's something the Pentagon doesn't talk about publicly. We already fought a secret war against Iran, in Iraq, from 2006 to 2009. America's most elite Special Operations Forces, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, the unit so classified the government barely admits they exist, hunted Iranian operatives across Iraq. They raided safe houses, captured intelligence officers, killed militia leaders. It was a shadow war. No declarations, no headlines. Just operators kicking in doors in the middle of the night, targeting the men who were killing American soldiers. This is the story of Task Force 17, the secret American unit that took the fight directly to Iran's Quds force, and the brutal cost of that hidden conflict for both sides. By 2006, the Iraq War was falling apart. The initial invasion had been a stunning success. Saddam Hussein was captured. His regime collapsed. Mission accomplished. Or so it seemed. But what came next was a nightmare. Sunni insurgents, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and something else, something that took American intelligence years to fully understand. Iran was inside Iraq, and Iran was killing Americans. The weapon that announced Iran's presence was the EFP, the explosively formed penetrator. A conventional roadside bomb, the kind Al-Qaeda used, sprays shrapnel in all directions. Deadly, yes, but American armored vehicles could often survive them. Up-armored Humvees, MRAPs, Bradleys. The military adapted, and casualty rates dropped. The EFP was different. It was precision-engineered death. The device used a shaped charge, a concave copper disc backed by explosives. When detonated, the explosion compressed the copper disc into a slug, a solid projectile of superheated metal traveling at 6,000 feet per second. Twice the speed of a rifle bullet. That copper slug could punch through anything. The thick steel plate on an up-armored Humvee? Paper? The advanced composite armor on a Bradley fighting vehicle? Tissue paper. Even the frontal armor of an M1 Abrams tank, the most heavily protected vehicle in the American arsenal, was vulnerable from certain angles. And EFPs were appearing all over Iraq, on roadsides, hidden in trash, embedded in walls, triggered by infrared sensors that detected the heat signature of approaching vehicles. American soldiers started dying in ways they hadn't before. Perfectly armored vehicles torn apart. Crews killed instantly by copper slugs that sliced through steel and flesh with equal ease. Survivors described the sound, a distinctive crack, different from a regular IED, and the aftermath. Holes punched clean through armored doors, molten copper sprayed throughout the crew compartment. By late 2006, EFPs were responsible for nearly 20% of American combat deaths in Iraq. Hundreds of soldiers. And the weapons kept coming, more sophisticated, more deadly, more precisely aimed. Where were they coming from? Iran. The Quds Force, the elite special operations branch of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was flooding Iraq with EFPs. They weren't just providing the weapons, they were running the entire operation. Iranian engineers designed the devices. Iranian factories manufactured the components, precision-machined copper discs that Iraqi workshops couldn't produce. Iranian trainers taught Shia militiamen how to build, emplace, and trigger the weapons. Iranian intelligence officers provided targeting, telling militia cells which routes American convoys would use, and when. It was a turnkey assassination service paid for by Tehran. American intelligence estimated that 150 Iranian operatives were inside Iraq at any given time. Quds force officers, trainers, weapons specialists. They moved freely, protected by Shia militias and often by the Iraqi government itself. The Iranians weren't hiding. They were hunting, and they were getting better at it every month. If you knew someone killed by an IED in Iraq, there's a real chance Iran was responsible. Comment below. The man who would lead America's response was already in Iraq. General Stanley McChrystal commanded the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, the umbrella organization that controls America's most elite units. Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, the 75th Ranger Regiment, the Intelligence Support Activity. The 161st Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the legendary Night Stalkers. Together, they formed the most lethal special operations force in human history. McChrystal was known as the Pope, a reference to JSOC's legendary secrecy. Attorney General Janet Reno had once complained that getting information from JSOC was like prying secrets from the Vatican. Under McChrystal, that secrecy became even more absolute. But what McChrystal built was unprecedented. He transformed JSOC into an industrial-scale killing machine. His philosophy was simple. It takes a network to defeat a network. Instead of occasional raids planned over weeks, JSOC would conduct relentless nightly operations, sometimes a dozen raids in a single night, using intelligence from one raid to generate targets for the next. The process was called F3EAD, Find, Fix, Finish, Exploit, Analyze, Disseminate. Find a target, fix his location, finish him. Exploit all intelligence at the scene, phones, computers, documents, analyze it immediately, disseminate new targets to assault teams, and start again. Night after night, raid after raid, an assembly line of death. Against al-Qaeda in Iraq, this approach had been devastatingly effective. JSOC had killed or captured hundreds of AQI leaders. By mid-2006, they had eliminated most of Zarqawi's senior lieutenants. And on June 7, 2006, they killed Zarqawi himself, the most wanted terrorist in Iraq. Now McChrystal turned this machine toward a new enemy, Iran. In October 2006, JSOC began what it called Countering Malign Iranian Influence, CII operations. The target, Quds force networks inside Iraq. The first major raid came in late December 2006. Delta Force operators descended on a compound in Baghdad, the headquarters of a major Shia political leader. Inside, they found something extraordinary. Iranian Brigadier General Mohsen Chizari. Chizari wasn't some low-level operative. He was the third highest-ranking officer in the Quds Force. He directed all Quds Force operations inside Iraq. He was, arguably, the man most directly responsible for the EFPs that were killing American soldiers. And Delta Force had him in custody. But the celebration didn't last long. The Iraqi government erupted in fury. Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki demanded Chizari's release. The Iranian government threatened diplomatic consequences. 9 days later, under intense political pressure, JSOC was forced to let him go. Chizari walked free, back to Iran, back to directing operations that would kill more Americans. This would be the pattern for the entire Shadow War. JSOC would capture Iranians. Politics would set them free. But JSOC didn't stop. January 11, 2007, the Kurdish city of Erbil in northern Iraq. Delta Force operators flew in on Black Hawks and Little Birds, small, fast helicopters that could land on rooftops and in tight urban spaces. One element hit from the roof. Another simultaneously breached the ground floor. The target was the Iranian Liaison Office, ostensibly a diplomatic facility, actually a Quds Force command post. Delta was hunting two specific men, Mohammad Jafari, deputy head of Iran's Security Council, and General Minjahar Fruzanda, the Revolutionary Guard's intelligence chief. Both were believed to be in Erbil that night. They missed them. Jafari and Fruzanda escaped, possibly warned in advance. But Delta captured 5 other Iranians. All 5 tested positive for handling explosives. Documents and phones seized in the raid revealed something American intelligence had suspected but couldn't prove. Iran wasn't just supporting Shia militias. They were working with everyone, including Sunni groups like Ansar al-Sunnah. The Quds force was playing all sides, fueling the chaos that was tearing Iraq apart. The Erbil 5 became a major diplomatic incident. Iran demanded their release. The Iraqi government protested, but this time JSOC held on. The 5 Iranians remained in custody, and Iran decided to send a message. 9 days after the Erbil raid on January 20, 2007, a convoy of black SUVs approached a security checkpoint in the city of Karbala. The vehicles were black Chevy Suburbans and GMC Yukons, the same vehicles used by American security teams. They had fake antennas that looked like military communications equipment. The men inside wore American uniforms. They carried American weapons. They spoke English. Iraqi guards waved them through. The convoy drove directly to the Provincial Joint Coordination Center, a compound where American soldiers held meetings with local officials. About 30 U.S. troops were inside. What happened next was the most sophisticated attack on American forces in the entire Iraq War. The attackers split into teams. Some parked at the back of the main building. Others took positions at the front. They moved with precision, clearly rehearsed, clearly planned. They threw a grenade into the main office. Captain Brian Freeman, a 31-year-old civil affairs officer from Temecula, California, was killed instantly. 3 other soldiers were wounded in the blast. And then the attackers did something that hadn't happened since Vietnam. They took American soldiers prisoner. 4 soldiers were seized. Specialists Jonathan Chisholm and Sean Falter were grabbed near the entrance, shot but still alive when the attackers dragged them to the vehicles. First Lieutenant Jacob Fritz and Private First Class Jonathan Milliken were pulled from inside the compound and a Humvee parked outside. The attackers loaded all 4 into the SUVs and fled east toward Iran. Iraqi army checkpoints tried to stop the convoy. There was a pursuit. Helicopters were scrambled. The attackers realized they wouldn't make it to the border, so they executed their prisoners. The bodies of the 4 American soldiers were found in a ditch near the town of Mahawil, 25 miles from Karbala. Chisholm, Falter, and Fritz were dead. Milliken was mortally wounded with a gunshot to the head. He died before help arrived. 5 Americans killed, 4 kidnapped and executed, in a raid that looked like it came from a Hollywood movie, because Iran had rehearsed it like one. This is what Iran was capable of. Hit like if you support our fallen soldiers. The Karbala attack changed everything. American intelligence soon confirmed what they suspected. The raid had been planned and directed by the Quds force. The attackers were from Asaib al-Haq, a Shia militia trained and funded by Iran. A Hezbollah operative named Ali Musa Dakduk had helped plan the operation. And here was the most chilling detail. American satellite imagery analysts found a full-scale mock-up of the Karbala compound. Inside Iran, the Quds force had built a replica of the American facility and used it to rehearse the attack. Iran hadn't just supported this operation. They had planned it, trained for it, and executed it through proxies. It was an act of war. JSOC's response was immediate and brutal. In February 2007, the Pentagon formally established Task Force 17, a dedicated unit focused exclusively on Iranian networks. The mission had 3 objectives: disrupt Quds, force operations through kill or capture raids, use captured intelligence to apply pressure on Shia political leaders, and isolate the Quds force from its Iraqi proxies. The campaign was called Operation Canine. Delta Force and other JSOC elements began hunting the men behind Karbala. Within months, they killed Azhar al-Dulaimi, the operational mastermind of the attack, during a raid north of Baghdad. He died reaching for an operator's rifle. They captured Qais Khazali, the leader of Asaib al-Haq, along with his brother and Ali Musa Dakduk, the Hezbollah advisor. This single capture was one of the most significant of the entire Iraq War. Dakduk was a senior Hezbollah operative who had been sent to Iraq specifically to train Shia militias in the tactics of the Lebanese terror group. the same group that had killed 241 American Marines in Beirut in 1983. Doc Duke talked. He revealed the entire structure of Iranian operations in Iraq. He confirmed that the special groups, the Iranian-trained militias, reported directly to the Quds force. He described training camps inside Iran where Iraqi fighters learned to build EFPs, conduct ambushes, and plan complex attacks. And he confirmed what the Karbala memo had suggested. The attack was approved at the highest levels of the Quds force. Documents seized in these raids laid bare the full extent of Iranian involvement. Iran's Quds force had approved the Karbala attack. They were paying militias based on how many Americans they killed. There were spreadsheets, actual spreadsheets, tracking attacks on coalition forces with bonuses for successful operations. Iran was running a bounty program on American soldiers. Kill an American, get paid. Kill 5, get a bonus. But Task Force 17 faced obstacles that other JSOC units didn't. Iraq's Shia-dominated government protected Iranian operatives. Prime Minister Maliki would shut down all JSOC operations, not just Task Force 17, everything, whenever a senior Iranian was captured. There were a lot of times when we detained a senior-level Quds operative who had a diplomatic passport, one Ranger officer later recalled. Maliki would shut down JSOC for a day and say, "Until he's in my compound, all JSOC operations are closed." And so obviously McChrystal would get pissed, and then I would have to drive some dickhead to the green zone, and he'd get released the next day. Over and over, JSOC captured Iranian operatives. Over and over, political pressure forced their release. It was maddening. American soldiers were dying from Iranian weapons, and the men providing those weapons kept walking free. But JSOC kept hunting. In spring 2009, Task Force 17 had a breakthrough. Interrogations of captured Quds Force operatives revealed something surprising. The senior Iranian agents weren't sneaking across the border like Sunni foreign fighters. They were flying in on commercial airlines from Tehran. The Iranians were so confident in their protection that they weren't even hiding. U.S. intelligence persuaded the airlines to share passenger manifests for flights from Tehran to Baghdad. Within hours, those manifests were on screens in the Task Force 17 Operations Center. Now JSOC knew exactly who was coming into Iraq and when. The raids intensified. Iranian operatives were grabbed at airports, at safe houses, at meetings with militia leaders. The Quds Force network in Iraq began to fray. By summer 2007, the pressure had become unbearable. Muqtada al-Sadr, the leader of the Mahdi army, Iran's most powerful proxy in Iraq, fled to Iran. He declared a ceasefire with coalition forces. It was a stunning reversal. The man who had led 2 major uprisings against American forces, whose militia had killed hundreds of U.S. troops, had been driven from the battlefield by JSOC's relentless campaign. The shadow war continued until America's withdrawal from Iraq in 2009. The full scope of what Task Force 17 accomplished remains classified. But the impact was clear. Iranian operations in Iraq were severely disrupted. Quds Force networks were dismantled. Hundreds of operatives were killed or captured. The flow of EFPs slowed. American soldiers lived because of what JSOC did in those years. And JSOC's reach extended beyond Iraq's borders. On October 26, 2008, 4 Black Hawks carrying Delta Force operators crossed from Iraq into Syria. Their target, Abu Ghadia, a senior al-Qaeda facilitator who ran the pipeline of foreign fighters, weapons, and money into Iraq. The Syrian government had protected him. Syria was off limits, supposedly. Delta didn't care about limits. They found Abu Ghadia at a compound near the town of Kamal, 5 miles from the Iraqi border. The operators hit fast and hard. Abu Ghadia and his bodyguards were killed. The Delta team extracted before Syrian forces could respond. Syria protested. They called it criminal aggression. Nobody in Washington apologized. The message was clear. If you help kill Americans, there is no safe haven. No border will protect you. But the war never really ended. When journalist Bob Woodward asked President George W. Bush about the secret campaign against Iran, the president gave a two-word answer: JSOC is awesome. It was the closest the administration ever came to publicly acknowledging what was happening. And then America left Iraq. The pressure stopped, and Iran came back. The militias that JSOC had dismantled rebuilt themselves. The Quds force networks that had been disrupted were reconstituted. The same groups, Asaib al-Haq, Kataib Hezbollah, and others, are active today. They're the ones attacking American bases right now. The man who planned the Karbala attack, Abdulreza Shahlai, was never captured. The United States has a $15 million bounty on his head. He's believed to be in Yemen now, helping the Houthis attack ships in the Red Sea. The same enemy, the same tactics, the same shadow war. The difference is that today there's no Task Force 17 hunting them every night. The soldiers who fought this secret war don't get parades. Most of them can't even talk about what they did. Their operations remain classified. Their names are protected. The battles they fought exist only in intelligence reports that may never be declassified. But they were there, night after night, kicking in doors, capturing the men who were killing their brothers, fighting a war that America has never officially acknowledged. Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, the Rangers, the intelligence support activity. The pilots of the 161st Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Thousands of men and women who served in the shadows, doing the dirty work that kept other Americans alive. The Quds Force thought they could kill Americans with impunity. Task Force 17 proved them wrong. And if Iran pushes too far again, if the proxy attacks become too brazen, if American casualties mount too high, the capability to respond still exists. JSOC is still out there, still training, still ready. The shadow war never really ended. It's just waiting. These operators fought a secret war to protect their fellow soldiers. Share this video so their sacrifice is never forgotten. Subscribe to Untold War Stories Official for more hidden battles that shaped our world.